Welcome to another edition of Therapeutic Thursdays. My name is Adam, and today we're going to be talking about boundaries. So, boundaries are a very important thing. There's a few things that come to mind when boundaries are discussed. The first thing is that, the boundaries you want to set, you want to start with something small. You want to set small boundaries and kind of build momentum so you can get to the bigger boundaries, the things that are more important. So, I may start off by saying something like, hey, I need you to say my name when we're talking, or I need you to look me in the eyes while we're talking, or maybe I need you to show up on time when we hang out, so that I don't have to sit around waiting and holding that boundary. Like, hey, if he doesn't show up, or they didn't show up, or she didn't show up, I'm not gonna hang around for too much longer for them. Or they didn't say my name while we're talking. We're not talking name to name, and they're making up our names. Then that's not my friend. That's not my association. I should just start by setting that boundary. Maybe sometimes you need to set a timeout, like, hey, you didn't follow this boundary, so now I need to take a break for a period of time, and respectfully pronounce that to them, like, hey, I set this boundary. I needed you I really needed you to, understand that this is important to me, and because you couldn't understand it, I just need to take a little bit of time to myself, and I'll be back. It'll be a certain time, but I just need you to understand I need to take some time to myself a little so I can reassess the situation. And then, sometimes people go their own way, sometimes they don't, but that's okay because they if they do that, they were never meant for you in the first place. And if they don't, then maybe this sets a message that, hey, I need you to accept my boundaries. The second thing that comes to mind with boundaries is that once you build momentum, you have bigger boundaries from the smaller ones. Sometimes we start with certain boundaries that are just too complicated for us to achieve. So we need a kind of a full-on force to take it down. So sometimes you need to bring some friends in to help you out. Who can I call on to help me consistently um, lay and enforce this boundary? How do I consistently enforce this boundary? Who can I inquire with about consistently setting this boundary? And that's kind of hard to discuss sometimes. Who can I ask, to help me out with this? And then if you end up meeting more people, you do that so you can start to build momentum again. And then the last thing to keep in mind is that, sometimes people don't want to follow boundaries, and that makes sense. So if they don't want to follow boundaries, then what we do is we just say, hey, I understand where you're coming from. I had this expectation that, hey, you were going to, understand my boundaries, but they didn't. So now I'll just be grateful. I'll understand the experience was this experience, and I'll put it in the past, and I'll put it in its place, and I'll remember the experience for when I move forward. Like, hey, I didn't cave to my own boundaries, which are that these boundaries need to be accepted. And so it's healthy to have boundaries. Something that I had a lot of trouble with in my life, and I'm starting to really understand. Like, hey, these little boundaries that we have, these things that we want to control in our life, these things that are important to us, that's very healthy. That keeps you sane, that keeps you understanding reality and living within the means of what you can achieve. And it's very important that we understand this. So that's what I have to say about boundaries. It's important in life that when we live with boundaries, that we are understanding and have that self love, that self appreciation, that self image, that I deserve these boundaries, that I am worth it enough to have these boundaries. So that's what I have on boundaries. Thank you for listening. This is another message of Therapeutic Thursdays, non licensed. My name is Adam. I'm just making a message to try and help as many people as I can. If any of this was triggering to you or bothered you, I encourage you to move forward and not look back. And I encourage you to leave feedback if you want to in the comments. Let me know if this was helpful. I appreciate it. Feel free to like, share, and comment. Have a good day.